people with PTSD and trauma, there's a 95% success rate. If you're buying this for PTSD, please take this 20-question survey. I'm going to have you do it again in 30 days. Build a report card for free. And I say, you were a 72. I didn't measure that. You did. You measured yourself. 30 days later, you're a 14.
Welcome, Mark, to the Inside Addiction podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a bit about your background and your own kind of personal story with addiction.
It's more of not a personal story with addiction. It's a personal story with what I think can help with addiction for the most part. But it actually started off 23 years ago with that. So that was my dog, and she could not come upstairs one morning. And we're like, this is not good. So somebody's got to take her to the vet, and ended up she had severe arthritis in her spine. And so a veterinarian friend of mine, very good friend, said, hey, there's a person with this magic machine that can do stuff with arthritis. And so I started to look into that, and that was 4 years ago. And so I learned a lot about frequencies and technologies and all the different things they can do. And so relative to addiction, there's a lot of things with the underlying cause, right? PTSD or depression or trauma or anxiety or lack of sleep. I made up a term called diabiological syndrome. People go, what is that? Well, DIA. So depression, insomnia, and anxiety. That's like the devil's triangle. You usually don't have one. You have two or three of them. So I invented, my background is I'm a rocket scientist. I'm not an electrical engineer, but after this journey, I'm planning on granting myself my own degree, because I've spent forever on the electronics and stuff of trying to get this device. And what really drove me is driving me is there's machines and stuff out there that are just not affordable, right? So in a clinical environment, they're $15,000, $20,000 machines sometimes. So it's PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field, is the space. Probably 1 out of 20 people have ever heard of it. And if they have, they've heard of a mat, like a beamer mat or something at a chiropractor. And those are $5,000 to $7,000. So they're just not affordable for most people. So frankly, that just pissed me off. It's like, I know there's got to be a more inexpensive way to do this. So that sent me down that journey to try and design a device that you could fit in your pocket. So you can't carry a mat on an airplane with you, and it wasn't affordable. And it's not discreet, and people don't want to really know you're getting therapy on yourself, right? So the fact that you could put it in your pocket and it kind of looks like an iPod or a phone was kind of the goal I was going after. So that's kind of the journey, was trying to find an affordable consumer device. I thought it would be easy to make, and it wasn't. So like most inventors, I started off very naively of try this, add these things, and things caught on fire and they didn't work. And you thought it would be a simple design, and it wasn't. But what I have now is working great. And like I said, it's really targeted at the underlying causes relative to addiction. We also have a few doctors that are using a stop smoking protocol, which is specifically an addiction, right? But it's similar in how it's trying to reprogram your brain, and it doesn't really matter if it's cigarettes or alcohol or drugs, right? So that's kind of the angle. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and for that all makes perfect sense. And I want to get into the device that you built and how that works and some of the protocols. We're going to go into all of that. But just at a very basic level, just tell me a bit about what is a kind of field, what does the device do, and what is the quantum field, or a field in general, or an magnetic pulse?
So it's PEMF, stands for pulse electromagnetic field. You're engulfed in it right now. So the Earth puts out what's called Schumann frequencies, discovered by a guy named Schumann. So 7.83 hertz, 14.1 and 20.3, I think. So the Earth and every living and non-living thing is engulfed in it. So it's not anything new. It's been around since the beginning of time. Magnetic therapies, when people go, it's all voodoo, or, it's like magnetic therapy has been around for 3,000 years. I mean, I think it was 3,500 years ago was the first time it was published. But it was discovered in Tesla's time, and then more in the 1950s, that pulse electromagnetic fields were much more therapeutic than just plain magnets. So that's how PEMF kind of came on the scene. And because of all the rage with 5G and EMF and all these people, was like, it's EMF is bad. Well, it's not the same thing at all. So EMF is like for your cell phone, it's sending out millions of hertz, with enough energy to get to a cell tower, it's got to travel through space. That's a lot of energy. PEMF device, this particular one is under 1,000 hertz. So it's very, very low energy. By the way, this is what it looks like. It's a little, kind of looks like an old iPod thing, but the magnetic field is collapsing back on itself. So it's not emitting out into space. Bottom line is PEMFs are very good for you. EMFs are potentially bad, right? And there's a lot of hype around it. But anyway, so EMF blockers and all those other things are coming out. So that's what it is. It actually works, and you get in discussions with doctors and everything is they want to know the mechanism of action. We don't know how aspirin works. Okay, you have theories on how aspirin works. You have theories on how drugs work. You don't know exactly how it works, but from the simplest sense, the cells in your body have electrical voltage on them, like a car battery. And it's been proven many, many times when that voltage gets low, you get sick. So it's recharging your cells' batteries. So if you just think of it that way, it's giving your cells energy to be healthy. And then the other thing is ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. It's the number one chemical that your cells in your body use for food. And it's been shown to increase ATP up to 500%. So it's really those two main things is recharging your cells' batteries, giving your cells food, and allowing them to, your body to heal itself is what it's basically doing.
Okay, cool. So just to clarify in my mind, so you've got EMFs, which is things like phones emit to 5G towers, all that kind of stuff. But what you're talking about is a PEMF, which, like you say, goes back inwards and is not harmful and raises the frequency of your cells and is like the battery for your cells and recharges them. So therefore, you're less likely to receive or to have disease or to be in a state that can create disease.
Everything you just said, plus gives you the energy to correct, or can't use the word cure, but a therapy to make things better, right? It's giving you the energy to go your bodies, and your body cells know what to do if they have enough energy. So it's allowing them to go do that. The magnetic field isn't very, I mean, it's extremely small. And because it's alternating current, it's kind of collapsing back on itself. So it's not really going out into space very far. And the magnetic fields don't go very far anyway. But the magnetic field actually on the device is not strong. I mean, magnetic fields drop off very fast with distance. So it's not strong enough to go from your pocket to your foot by itself if you had a broken foot, but it still works. So the theory is it's resonating with the water in your body like a pebble in a pond. So you throw a pebble in a pond, there's a little bit of energy, but that wave, this mechanical wave, travels through the water. I think that's how that works because, as I just said, for it to go that distance is hard on the magnetic field by itself, impossible actually, because magnetic field doesn't travel that far. But we know if you're not hydrated, and that means 4 glasses of water in the 4 hours before you run a therapy, it won't work near as well. And then your body is electrically conductive, right? So on a magnetic field, it's going to create an electrical current, very, 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 very small one that almost no one can feel, but it's traveling through your body that way as well through the electrical conductivity of your skin and your organs and stuff. So there's only one guy out there that says bigger is better when you come to magnetic power, and he sells the big machines. But there's been some studies out there, Luke, that are like this is a 9 Gauss machine, which is reasonably high, but there's some studies out there show there's still, this is a double-blind study, still therapeutic results from a pico level. That's 1/1 trillionth of a Gauss, which seems impossible that could have any therapeutic effect, but it does. And, when you get into where it's used a lot, actually, not this particular device yet, but other larger products is in horses and animals and stuff, right? MagnaWave is a very popular one that's out there. And a horse doesn't have a placebo, right? When he's limping around, you run the device on him and then he's run through the field hightailing. It's hard to placebo that. So it's kind of cool with dogs and dogs, cats, horses. The hard part I had, there was a challenge is how do I attach that to a dog? And I was Velcroing it to their vest and then they're running in the park and it can come off. So we created some bandanas. So they're custom-made bandanas that the device just fits in and the dog wears the bandana.
And for you mentioned your dog. Take us back there. And how did that incident with your dog feed into this journey?
Unfortunately, what happened is she got so fast and we had a driver from Utah to Oregon and my vet went, don't do that and put her in that car. So that's just how I so I actually didn't get to treat her with that, my own dog, way back when I had it. But the other data that we have out there, other people's dogs and cats, it's like older cats have kidney problems, all kinds of, and Dogs and cats will actually go lay next to it. They know something's going on, or once in a while, they won't like it. It's rare, but they won't like it. And they'll tell the owner, you're running the wrong protocol, right? You're misdiagnosing whatever is wrong with your dog or cat. But, the common thing in dogs are, everyone knows, relax and balance, anxiety, separation, right? Fireworks. They all hate that. Allergies where they're licking or scratching a lot, right? Arthritis is a big one. So those type of things. So to answer your question, yeah, I still haven't gotten over that dog after 23 years. I don't have another one yet because it's just so sad that we didn't get a chance to help her with it. But there's doing all kinds of things with like wound healing for spading and neutering, so they heal faster, or just hit by a car, broken bones, that kind of thing. There's been a lot of good success with that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And you mentioned a protocol. What is a protocol?
So protocol. So and then I get asked this every day. Well, what frequency is the device running? Well, they're all between 1 and 1,000 hertz. Okay, so they're very, very, very low energy, but they're frequency pairs. So if you think about it this way, a frequency pair as an ingredient in a recipe, and the protocol is the recipe or the meal. Okay, so where they've come from was back in 1934, a thing called the Flexner Report came out, and it made it, quote, illegal to do any electrical stimulation. You can only do chemicals and drugs, and that's only in America. Everyone else kept studying it. Only in the US did we end up doing something stupid like that. So you ended up losing your medical license. So a lot of history got lost, a lot of it. Some of it got resurrected, and it started very basic with ingredients: 40 hertz for inflammation, 253 for vitality, or whatever it was, right? So a lady started off just practicing, trying to make recipes. And then she's trained about 8,000 people in the last 35 years. So all of these protocols came from trial and error on real people, right? They come into the office. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm a rocket scientist, but I get a call. Now it's about 5 times a day. I get an email or call that says, I just got one 2 minutes before this call. Will this help with RSPS, some 4-letter acronym that I've never heard of? So I've learned to get a cold drink before I go Google it, because you can't unsee those pictures, right? You're going to look at some disease you've never heard of. You're like, okay, no, I don't have a protocol specifically for that, but general inflammation is the root cause to 90% of the stuff that's out there. Or if it's toxicity, have them run liver support. If it's pain, they can run back pain or neck pain, right? Fibromyalgia is seeming to help a lot with any kind of neuropathy or nerve issues. I have 3 different doctors that called me up in the same week and said, hey, this thing's kicking butt for MS, muscular sclerosis. And they go, yeah. I go, I don't have a protocol for that. What are you running? Fibromyalgia? And they all went, yep. So they're taking that bridge of, so it can help with a whole bunch of things. And it's kind of weird. I got to be careful, right? I'm not a doctor, but when people call me up with, I don't know if it'll help with that or not, just go ahead and try it. I had one lady say every other week, she's scratching her arm so bad, she's just bleeding and it's horrible. And she goes, it's debilitating. I'm like, what is it? She goes, nobody knows. I say, well, it sounds like an allergy or general inflammation. So run those 2 and see what happens. And it went away. My best story with that, and I didn't tell her to do it, was a 17-year-old girl said, she goes, Mark, no boy's ever going to ask me out in my lifetime because I have Tourette's. I'm a monster. She goes, I ran brain balancing and my Tourette's disappeared, and I have a date Saturday night.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I go, what? I didn't tell her to run brain balancing, right? She just figured that out on her own. And she has not had an episode in 2 years now. So there's some weird stories like that, and when you get in an argument with doctors about placebo effect, how much of it, and like, there's obviously some, I don't know how big it is, but when you have somebody suffering addiction, PTSD, and they got a gun in their mouth, and I've had multiple soldiers call me and say, I ran PTSD, I feel way better, I don't want to kill myself anymore. I don't care if that's 100% placebo, right? If somebody got off the couch, went outside, not suicidal anymore. So tell you, it's very interesting. And again, I'm skeptical, and one of your listeners should be. I'm a rocket scientist. I don't believe any of this 23 years ago, but there's just too much data and it doesn't work for every single person, obviously, but the success rate is insane. PTSD is a 95% success rate with it. I think it's higher than that. The people that it didn't help, they didn't really use it. They used it a couple times and sent it back. So, it didn't work for me. So.
And how many times you need to kind of run a protocol to see some results?
So the logic that I was initially basing that on was 3 to 4 times a week for 30 days. And if you don't see a result after that, then it's probably not going to help you. Now, I'm basing that on the clinical, where the history came from, is that's what the data shows us how many times you go into the doctor's office, right? So if you go to the doctor's office 12 to 14, 16 treatments and it hasn't worked, it's not going to, but it may not work on the first try. But I've based it on that. Honestly, Luke, about half of my customers don't listen to any of that, and they're running it 5 hours a day because they're running arthritis, sleep, this, back pain, and they don't care. They're just not listening to me. And you can't really overdose on it. And which is amazing with blood sugar. And we're trying to collect enough data so I can statistically fight back all the Facebook haters. Okay. Is watching it drop blood sugar. It's amazing. I've seen people go from like 150 to 80 in 15 minutes.
Oh wow.
They'll go, that's impossible. Last week, this guy sent me his glucose monitoring chart and he showed 3 times where it dropped. You go, that's impossible. I'm like, so I don't know how often if that happens for everybody, then that's, or a large percent, even if it's 50% of the people that helps, that's going to be awesome for diabetes. We just don't have enough data yet to fight off the P factors and N numbers and all that. Kind of like asthma. I have 100% success rate with asthma, people reporting they can breathe better and by blowing in a machine, but I don't have an N factor. I don't have enough sample size to make an argument and stand on a stage and say, damn it, this works type thing. So I don't really promote that yet. The other one that I've learned in the last couple of months, there is a lot of very angry old men out there with prostate issues, right? So I said, oh, it was what I was just saying earlier. Do you have one for prostate? Not specifically. So I said, run general inflammation. So I had several guys call me up and go, it's helping. We need something better. And so I went and pulled some research, 30 years of research in Europe, and I found 3 studies. 2 were on prostate for men, and 1 was for dogs. And it was kind of interesting as I did that deep dive, is that dog's prostate is very close to actually a human male. So they do studies on dogs, but that was in the 8 hertz, and 25 hertz range. So I'm telling the people that have bought it for prostate issues, run general inflammation, brainwave beta and brainwave theta, and just mix them and see what's happening. I have so many calls, Luke, of angry men. Okay, I'm 62, but these guys are mad. And I don't have any prostate issues that I know of yet, but I don't want any after the calls that I'm getting. So the next version that's coming out, I'll have probably in November. I've added a specific prostate one that came from the original protocols that I just didn't have before, because there's already 55 on there. So I don't want to put 500 on there, right? Those and they're what they are is they're actually MP3 files. So if you picture an MP4 player like that looks, in fact, here's the inside of it. It's an MP4 player. Instead of a speaker, it has coils.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
it's driving the MP3 through that file. But like PTSD, I said before, they're frequency pairs, and they're changing. Think of it as ingredients in a recipe in a symphony. So it's basically a symphony. A PTSD is going through 76 frequency pairs, and it's changing every 1 to 4 minutes. So for me to write those protocols on a music synthesizer and process them and check them 500 times to make sure they're correct, because I don't ever want to put one out that's got the frequency wrong, is because there's been a few, well, we won't go there. There's been a few combinations of frequencies in the clinical environment. It's like, ooh, don't do those. They have an adverse effect, not many. So I'm making sure I don't accidentally put 81 hertz in there instead of 82 in the wrong place. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, which you wouldn't think that would make a difference, 81 versus 82, but it does. It's interesting that it's that. So yeah, that's what
it's the same as music, right? If you're playing the right note, that sounds lovely. If you play the right note off, you can hear it, right? You can notice that it's slightly off. So it's important to have the right notes at the right time for the right conditions, and have the orchestra, if you like. In this example, it would be, the PEMF firing in the right way.
Exactly. And when I reference, so when people go, it's voodoo and there's all the Facebook haters, right? And it's top of mind because I get them every day, and I wish it didn't personally affect me, but it does, right? Because I try to fight back with data and they just murder you. And it's like, there's like 30,000 published studies on PMF out there. Go read them, go look at them and stuff. And when I reference my device, I go, well, that wasn't the exact same device. Well, it was a PEMF device at 25 hertz with the same ramp square wave alternating current. So the analogy that you were just is the analogy is what you just referenced. A good musician can pick up another guitar and still play a song. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be the same guitar. So that's the logic I'm using. Is even though that wasn't exactly my device in that study, they're very, very similar. So, but then you get the Facebook haters say, until you have 20 double blind studies, I don't, you're a liar. You should go to hell. I mean, I've had death threats. Literally, people
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
come to my house. One guy gave me his address in New York, says, please come visit me so I can kill you. Like,
Yeah,
all
the
right.
people on the internet are just, they're it can just go to another level. But I think one thing you've got is the feedback from people, right? They're literally saying to you on a daily basis, I'm sure, like, this is changing my life, this is working, this is helping me, like the stories you referenced earlier, right? This is making a difference in life. And
I
I
got
think that's really important.
for every Facebook hater I get about 25 to 30 thumbs ups or hearts. So that keeps me going. I was on a call last night and I couldn't even understand the lady because she was crying so hard. She goes, "You've
Yeah.
changed my life completely." She had I think she was raped probably by her father, I think, that kind of thing, from just horror of childhood. And she's only had the device for like 6 weeks, maybe. So it's that part keeps me going. You get people like get rid of Tourette's or something. You're like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah.
I almost cry every time I tell that story because yeah, she's a 17-year-old girl. I've been talking to her for 2 years. It hasn't come back. And I'm like, that is weird. I mean, I don't know how that happened. But the other thing too is in the clinical environment, sometimes when you can't figure out what it is, the doctors will just go run brain balancing and see what happens. Right.
Yeah.
Just see if it helps do something. Right. So
Yeah. And my personal opinion, my 2 cents is whether you have all of those, double blind studies, whether it's backed up by evidence or whether it's placebo or whether it like 100% works, for me, it's like, well, that person, it literally changed their reality. It changed their life. So to me, that did work, regardless of whatever is going on and what you can prove or not prove. It worked. It changed her life. That's her new lived experience. And you can't argue with that. She literally got rid of her Tourette's and she had a date. That's amazing. Is that not enough for the world to kind of base it on? Do you know what I mean?
and exactly. And then the other thing I tell people is like, even if I had 4 million double blind studies, they're not going to be 100% ever. There's never been one that hit, right? So it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So that's why I tell everyone that's why I have a 30-day money back guarantee. Just try it. I'll say, I don't know. You made up a 4-letter acronym I never heard of. Try it. I think maybe it's inflammation. If it doesn't work, send it back. Because I don't want anyone to ever have one of these devices that they paid for if it didn't help them. Because like I said, I don't need any more Facebook haters going. Because every time I respond to one and go, scam, 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 you're Hitler. I mean, how is it a scam? You need to explain to me how I'm making money off this scam when I have a money back guarantee. And the reality is, I put 30 days on there, but I've taken them back after 4 months. Right. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't want anyone to have one or I send them a new one. It was like, or try this one. I had a lady yesterday, might didn't work at all. I want a refund. So I looked at it when she sent it back. She had the power level at 0. So yeah, you didn't read the instructions. You got to turn it to 10. I'll send you another one back for free. Try it at 10 and see if it works now. You used it for a month without it really on, those type of things. So anyway, yeah, like I said, I wish the face maybe, I mean, I have to run my own protocols to not freak out about my own PTSD because I get, I'm running a sweepstakes. I give one away every Friday and there's a little comment section. And Luke, when you read some of the comments from people that addiction, PTSD, trauma, it's awful. It's awful. And it's like, I just start crying and all of this. I don't want to get a million requests from this podcast, but I'll just sometimes send here. One guy said to me, he goes, my son-in-law killed my daughter, tried to kill both my grandkids, shot the boy, killed him, shot the girl, went through her jaw and the side of her head, didn't kill her. We need 2 devices, but I can only afford one right now. Here's 3 of them. It's like, hey, I got to manage my own PTSD when you're reading stuff like that and people have been kidnapped and raped. And it's like, there's some horror out there that, especially with the PTSD and trauma, that can really help people. I wish I could, what I really want to do. So there's 44 suicides a day, non-civilian. Okay. So that's 22 military vets, 15 first responders, 5 medical workers, and 2 active duty a day. It's 44 a day. That's not counting me, you, and everyone else. I mean, I'm ex-Army Reserve, but all the other suicides that are out there that are awful is I would love to be able to give these away to every military vet. I'm spending the company's me and those fish, Luke, right? And I'm spending my retirement, right? My wife's salary doing all this stuff. I don't have any investors, right? I'm not making any money off this yet. It costs, you got to pay Mark Zuckerberg a lot of money for somebody to find me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the cost acquisition for Google ads and Facebook and YouTube is very expensive. I don't want to disclose everything, but the ad cost is 5 to 10 times more than the cost of the device.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least 5. Yeah, something like that. I was going to do the math. Yeah, about 5 to 8 times as much, right? So, you know, I've gone to the Veterans Administration, and they're like, you know, you're fighting the whole cog, big wheel, pharmaceutical. I mean, somebody asked me to lecture on it wasn't a podcast. It was actually a stand-up lecture where I was talking about this. Said, how would you measure success? I go, when Pfizer or Merck kill me, right? It means I got on their radar screen enough to actually care, right? To put a dent in their drug prescription. And it's never going to be a model for the pharmaceutical industry because it's not a recurring, right? It's not a recurring thing that you're buying every month. In
Yeah.
fact, my wife said the reason I don't like this model is it doesn't break and you don't consume it. I'm like, not directly, but here's how it gets consumed, Luke, is somebody buys one, their husband takes it, their friend borrows it for migraines, their buddy borrows it here. I've got one guy that's bought 15 of them because that's how many of his friends have taken them from him. Right? They go, hey, this really helped with my migraines or really helped with sleep. I'm not giving it back, or let me buy it from you or something like that. So, but anyway, yeah, I would love PTSD. I had to go pick out of these 55 protocols. I had to go pick one to do my own clinical trials on to fight the fighters. And in medical terms, if your P factor is 0.05 or less, then it's statistically and clinically significant. My P factor for PTSD is like 0.00007. So I can make an argument in front of a doctor or statistician on that one. But I wish I had those for all kinds of different studies. But I don't yet. Hopefully someday I will. But getting doctors, they're so busy. It's like I have several studies going on. I give these to doctors and then they disappear. You don't hear from them. They don't run the study. It's very frustrating, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so you have to almost do them yourself.
Well done for being out there and doing it. And I mean, in terms of the lens of addiction, so like we spoke about, you know, there's over 55 protocols on the device. Some of them for very, very useful things relating to addiction, whether that's stop smoking, PTSD, trauma, just general relaxing, soothing anxiety, like all those kind of things. So if someone is struggling with any of that stuff, how does it work? Talk me through the step by step, exactly what they need to do.
So what I would do, the addiction one, I would start with PTSD. If they, especially if they know they had some trauma in their life, and they know indirectly that it had something to do with it. That's a long protocol because I said it's 76 pairs, so it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long. So they would just wear it with a lanyard around your neck like that, you know, just put it around your neck or put it in your pocket, right? Just only old men have pockets like that anymore, but you can just put it in your, you know, put in your pants pocket, or what I always tell women, which 2/3 of the women in the world have a phone in their back pocket anyway. So stick
Yeah.
this in the other pocket, right? And just do it 3 to 4 times a week when you're cooking, cleaning, watching TV, driving. Make a good point there. The first time you use it, do not be driving or operating a catapult, because if you're in severe pain, it can have an endorphin release that's going to get you drunk or stoned, literally. So I had she actually is a physical therapist. She was 23 years old and got in a severe car wreck right over here. And first time she ran back pain, she started backpedaling and sat in a chair. She goes, I'm seeing double vision. I'm like, whoa. So it can do that. And that's been measured in the bloodstream, that it can release because your body's gone, I'm in so much pain that it's suddenly not there. It just does an endorphin relief. So to qualify that, first time, two, they run it, be sitting on a couch or whatever, so you're not driving, but run it 3 to 4 times a week minimum. The main reason it won't work, main 2 reasons: you didn't use it, okay? You told me you did and you used it twice. You lied to me. I used it for 30 days. No, you bought it 7 days ago. Okay, you didn't use it for 30 days. My favorite one on that one is this guy writes on Facebook, I bought this for prostate and it didn't help at all. Not one single bit did it move the needle. I want my money back immediately. And I said, hey, Pat, you can have a full refund, of course. However, I don't think you gave it a fighting chance. Here's why. You bought it 48 hours ago and it's not delivered to your house till tomorrow. You don't even have it yet. Okay. So it'll be that they didn't use it. They'll use it once and put it on the shelf, or they weren't hydrated. It'll still work if you're not hydrated. But we talked about earlier at the resonance and the water in the body. And it's not insane. It's 4 glasses of water in the 4 hours before you run the therapy. So like me, when I'm running it, I do it at noon or something, right? Because I wake up and start drinking water. And you should be drinking water anyway. Yeah, you need to be hydrated and you need to use it. That's the 2 main things. And it won't be 100%, but it's pretty high. Interesting thing, for the people with PTSD and trauma. So what I do, because this is very important, there's a 95% success rate. What I'm using is the PLC-5 from the Veterans Administration. It's 20 questions, 0 to 4. The highest score you can get is an 80. Okay, if you're over 33, you have PTSD, according to the Veterans Administration. So everyone that buys it for that, everyone that buys, when I say, if you're buying this for PTSD, please take this 20 question survey. I'm going to have you do it again in 30 days. It's a weird psychology thing, Luke, is 95% will have a drop. Okay. 2 out of 3 will be statistically and clinically significant, which is 11 to 12 points. That's all the good news. The potential bad news is about half the people will tell me, yeah, I don't know, not sure. And so I build a report card for free and I say, you were a 72. I didn't measure that. You did. You measured yourself. 30 days later, you're a 14. And people start crying when they see that. They go, I didn't do that. Are you serious? So they forgot how bad they felt 30 days earlier. Okay. So I've talked to psychiatrists about it. I've talked to doctors and stuff about it. And they're all like, that's super common, Mark. People forget how bad they felt. A friend of mine he's a chiropractor. We've known each other since kindergarten. Right. So I told him this story and he goes, I videotape everyone that comes in here. It's a new patient because they're never going to remember what they were when they walked in. So they come in on a walker. I videotape them on a walker with the, tennis balls and ball, right? Then a couple sessions later, they come in on a cane. Then the third time they come in, they're holding a dog, like a puppy or something, right? They're holding a little lap dog. And they're like, oh, I could always do this. He's like, no, you couldn't. When you came in here, you could only do that. And they shows them the video and people kind of freak out. They're like, that's how bad I was. So that's the only drawback. I just had this today before this call. Somebody said, yeah, I don't think it's helped me for PTSD. I want to send it back. So I'm doing her report card right now. She went from like a 52 to a 14. I'm like, you can send it back if you want to, but here's what actually happened. Here's what actually happened. The other one that I'm measuring for biomarkers, because, the gold standard, unfortunately, in most medicine, right, is self-reported, very subjective data. Back pain. I look at a chart. Yeah, that guy with that face is a 9. That's me. I left as a 3, right? Same with a lot of other things. What I recommend is this thing right here. It's a Fitbit Inspire 3. And the reason I'm recommending it is it's only $79. So the Aura rings, I love the Aura rings, but they're $400 to $500. Okay, there you go. We won't talk about that 6 months I wasted with the Aura ring guys. Okay, but so $79. What this has stress, sleep, and heart rate variability. So for PTSD and trauma, this is really important, especially for your audience, and it's not intuitive if you don't know this, because I got it wrong the first time. You want your heart rate variability to go up. The higher your heart rate variability is, the healthier you are and the more responsive you are to fight or flight. Okay. You don't want it to go down, because people think of heart rate like, if my pulse goes down, it must mean I'm calmer. Yes. But what you really want is heart rate variability to go up. So that is the number one thing the Veterans Administration now uses as biomarkers for PTSD. So whether it's drugs or finger therapies or PEMF or giving them puppies or service dogs, that's what they're measuring as heart rate variability. So yeah, that's what I would recommend as like an Inspire. Now there may be other ones out there, but this is one I found that works, looks good, it's affordable, and the data seems pretty accurate.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I'd recommend everyone who's watching to track their heart rate variability. I think it's really, really important to do that and to measure how your body's responding to stress. And to be in that whole kind of biohacking world, because once you have that benchmarks, whether that's for a self-reported questionnaire like yours, for example, or whether that's through tracking the HRV, then they can use something like your machine to then see what's happening, see the results, and actually monitor, that score go up and see actually my body is responding literally differently, right? My body is responding to stress. It's less in fight and flight. It can handle stress easier, and pressure and emotion and all those things. And you can literally watch it go up. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and you know how I found out about Oura rings? I had 3 different customers send me Oura ring data that said their REM sleep went up and their sleep. And I'm like, what's an Oura ring? I didn't know at the time.
Yeah,
A couple of years
yeah,
ago. What is that? Because it's a ring. And so that's when I looked into it. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, and I tried to
yeah,
do something with that device. But yeah, um, yeah, that's the best way to get some subjective data to convince yourself that, you
yeah.
know,
That's amazing that it is working, right? So
it's
the
working.
person, so definitely tracking all of that stuff is good with the Fitbit you said, or a ring or something along those lines. It's really really important. And then using your device so the person recognizes they're struggling with PTSD or they've got trauma in their life. They're recognizing that inability to regulate those emotions is leading to them turning to drink or drugs. They want to stop that. So they buy your device, they sit down, they run the protocols 2.5 hours, they don't give up, they keep fucking doing it, they
Right.
keep doing it for a period of time. And then how do they, obviously they know it's working with the data we just mentioned, right, by doing a self-reported study, and measuring it, or via an Aura ring or HRV tracking or something like that. But what are they going to feel in themselves? How are they going to know that it worked?
So it's those 2 things, it's self-reporting it and you're getting the bio data. The third one I was going to mention, which is really important, is your friends and your spouse will notice the difference and they'll tell you. So sometimes that's the biggest factor. In fact, with ADHD, so there's like this exact protocol is used at the Cleveland Clinic for ADHD, and they have about a 75% success rate. Here's what normally happens. The teacher calls the parents in for teacher parent conference saying, your kids changed completely. What drugs did you change him to? Because I need to recommend that to other parents. And they go, we didn't change his drugs. He's doing this magnetic thing. And they're like, what? So you'll see other people. I just got a testimonial from a long friend whose wife, apparently I didn't know this, had childhood rape as well. And he goes, when I saw her filling out the post score, I didn't coach her. I was just watching what number she was putting in. And I noticed that her behavior was different, but not monstrous. Like it was so obvious, but her behavior is different. But when she was putting the score in and she was putting all these zeros and ones instead of fours in there, he goes, I just started crying. You should see his testimony on my website. It's pretty moving. He's like, I knew it helped her, but I knew it helped her that much because she's kind of a quiet person. And he goes, but watching her fill the score out, I had to walk away from the computer because like she's putting zeros and ones in instead of threes and fours. And so the people around you will notice it.
Yeah,
That may be your first indication that, hey, you're not as irritable. You know, you're going out and doing some stuff. I mean, there's a doctor last week told me she actually is the doctor that wrote the PTSD protocol 12 years ago, right? Which is interesting. And she bought I'd never met her before. And she said, I had a military veteran, Vietnam vet, one of those hard ass guys. He's like, don't treat me for PTSD. That's for a bunch of pussies. I don't want to hear any of that. We went down that road. So there's like, so she just ran it anyway and told him it was relax and balance and stuff. And then after like, I don't want to cry with this story because it's pretty moving. It's like after like multiple sessions, he finally sat her down and goes, he was going out with friends, going to the movies. His wife saying he's way better. His kids wanted to hang around him, just on and on. He goes, I need you to be honest with me. Sat down, he held her hand and goes, you're running PTSD on me, aren't you? Because she's been lying to him for several months. And you're like, yep, I am. He goes, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to promise me you'll spend the rest of your life trying to come up with a device that's affordable so every military person can have one of these. And she goes, Mark, he died a year later from cancer. I got T-boned in a car wreck and slammed into a telephone pole. And she goes, I'm functional, but my brain has some serious problems with looking at computers and light and processing it and stuff. And she goes, I've been traumatized that I've never been able to fulfill this guy's dream. And then she goes, I found your device. Now it's fulfilled. There's a device out there somebody can afford. I was like, are you serious? I mean, I'm sitting there listening to this story. And like I said, never met her, never even heard her name before until maybe 2, 3 weeks ago. So she's like, now there's an affordable device out there that somebody can use. I'd love to get it into all the military guys' hands and first responders and nurses and doctors and all the other horror that people have seen. I mean, I
yeah,
need a grant. I need a grant. I need a really, I won't say which foundation is, but picture one of the 4 richest guys in the world. Okay. You go to him and his wife's foundation, you could probably figure out who that is. It's like, here's my proposal, spent all this time. And they said, we don't fund anything in the United States. All of our stuff is outside the US. What?
yeah,
I'd love to find a foundation, come in, buy these things and super easy, help distribute them, that kind of stuff. Anyway,
yeah.
that's still my end goal is to get as many of them out there as I can.
Yeah,
And
no,
maybe
awesome.
not go broken in the meantime. But
Yeah, exactly, and have the funding in place to make that happen. No, that'd be really, really amazing. That
yeah.
really would. But no, that's amazing. And where can people go and find them? Where can they find out about you? How can they get hold of one of these things we've been talking about?
Yeah, so Resona, RESONA, like resonance, short for resonance, resona.health / addiction. And it's not, there's no .com in there. So it's just resona.health / addiction. They retail for $3.99, giving your listeners $150 off. If they go to that webpage, there'll be a coupon code and it'll automatically add. But there's tons of information on that page. I have multiple ebooks. You can go in the rabbit hole as deep as you want to. You can start at the top to all these published papers. I've tried to curate, is that the right word? Like a museum, I tried to pull together the right ones and stuff that I think would be most important, but there really is 30,000 out there. You can go to PubMed and type PEMF therapy and go into the deepest dive that you want to. But that's where they'd go, is to that web address, and there'll be links to go everywhere, or they could buy one there.
Yeah, no, awesome. We'll link it down in the show notes as well. And to everyone listening, like Mark just said, he's set up an amazing discount for everyone. So definitely head over there and check it out and get one, right? Give it a try. There's a 30-day money back guarantee, right? Order it, try it, see how it goes, see how it is, try it out. I think that's the best thing, right? And I think it's really important to recognize that. And the stories you've told today, Mark, have been really amazing.
Thank you.
And personally, I believe a lot in resonance, the quantum field, HRV, like all of these kind of technologies, and something that I look interested in and getting deeper in. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. So it's been amazing to have the conversation.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts, anything else you want to leave the audience with before we come to an end?
If you're as old as me, remember a comedian named Rich Hall in the 70s. He had a thing called sniglets, where you words that don't exist in the dictionary but should. And one of them is called boson. And boson is a combination of bozo and ozone. And it's the invisible gas that surrounds people that stops new ideas from getting in. So I'm telling your listeners, get rid of the boson if you have any, and give it a try and see if it works. Okay. And if it doesn't, like you said, send it back. I don't want anyone to pay for something if it didn't work.
Yeah, no, awesome,
Get rid of the
awesome.
boson. That's the last thought.
No, awesome. Well, yeah, thanks very much, Mark. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.